confirmed Governor Christie is suspending his 2016 presidential bid, realizing how little support he has. Another low performer suspended a campaign, Carly Fiorina. She finished just behind Ben Carson and below Christie. Donald Trump, the big winner in New Hampshire. Going into the primary, it was a toss-up for second, with pundits wondering who would benefit from Christie's takedown of a robotic Marco Rubio. Ohio's John Kasich answered that call. Ted Cruz came in third. Christie out of the race. Our chief political correspondent, Michael Aaron, confirmed it and joins us on the set, along with Republican strategist Jeanette Hoffman, Democratic strategist Bill Caruso, of course, Michael Aaron, and correspondent David Cruz. Michael, you confirmed just a short while ago the governor is suspending his campaign.
Apparently, the governor held a conference call with his campaign staff at around 4 o'clock this afternoon, told him it was all over, which we knew it was going to come eventually after what he had to say last night. And he put on his Facebook page an adaptation of his remarks last night, except that the words, "And so today I leave the race without an ounce of regret." I was up in New Hampshire last night at the Radisson Hotel in Nashua, his headquarters. I was thinking around 9:45 as his numbers were sinking and the margin was widening. This is a tough moment for him, but he rose to the occasion, as he usually does when it comes to oratory. Let's hear a little of what he said.
I have both won elections that I was supposed to lose, and I've lost elections I was supposed to win. And what that means is you never know. And it's both the magic and the mystery of politics, that you never quite know when which is going to happen, even when you think you do.
He was pretty subdued there, but the magic and mystery of politics strikes me as the kind of poetry that he can spin on occasion.
Jeanette, I want to ask you, what went wrong here?
Well, I think timing in politics is absolutely everything. And Michael talked about the magic and the mystery of politics. I think a year ago, this time, no one could have predicted that Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump would win New Hampshire. It has just been a wild ride, and it started, in the beginning of this campaign when there were about 12 Republican candidates. Governor Christie really didn't have a chance to distinguish himself, especially with Donald Trump in the race, sucking up all the oxygen, being the tough talker that Governor Christie is.
And Bill, your thoughts on that?
I agree with Jeanette. I mean, there's some variables in this race that nobody saw coming. I mean, and Donald Trump in particular sucked up a lot of Chris Christie's oxygen. I agree with the governor, though. No regrets on this campaign. I think the governor and his team ran a great campaign. I think the regrets and their a Monday morning quarterbacking are timing. The governor peaked in 2012. There was a time and a period then when he was in high demand, and then a series of events that have happened, both political and governmental in our state, that I think were used to assassinate him as a presidential candidate.
While no one saw Trump coming and perhaps Bernie Sanders, how much does Bridgegate factor in all this?
I think it's a factor. Look, I think there's a lot of different factors that went into this. I think Donald Trump is the biggest factor. I think, Bridgegate, I think a lot of the moderate Republicans like John Kasich, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, they're all stealing votes away from each other. I think that the landscape just wasn't there for Governor Christie. He gave it his best shot in New Hampshire. He spent the most amount of time there, the most amount of money, but he fell short.
And Bill, along those lines, spending that much time, that much money, and still falling short, was it on the minds there of voters, Bridgegate by any chance?
I don't know that Bridgegate per se was on the minds of voters. I think it's a culmination of different things. Chris Christie's, persona, his stick, right? The straight talker, I think was damaged after Bridgegate. And I think that had a long effect on this campaign. But I think what ended up happening to Chris Christie is Chris Christie made a bold move in the last debate to go on the attack and take out Rubio. And, I think you hit it on the nail on the head. He didn't benefit from that. John Kasich did.
And John Kasich benefited from that, Michael. You were in New Hampshire. What were people talking about this debate performance? Because in interviews, Christie was talking about he's got the bounce. He's going to these town halls. I got the bounce. But
Christie was talking about the debate performance incessantly. I don't mean to criticize him. It meant a lot to him. It almost redeemed him in his own mind, it sounded like. And yes, there was a lot of talk about it. It definitely made an impact in New Hampshire. but the impact was on Rubio more than on Christie.
And to be fair, Governor Christie wasn't doing well before that debate. I mean, he finished in a bad spot in Iowa. And, you know, we expect him to do well in debates. He's a great communicator. I think it was kind of a Hail Mary pass, this to go aggressively so hard against Rubio. And in the end, you know, it certainly hurt Rubio, but I think it benefited Bush and Kasich more.
And David, people looked at what Christie did in the debate to Marco Rubio. Some people see it as bullying. This guy is almost an expert debater when it comes to challenging people, talking extemporaneously. He's a former prosecutor, of course. He's been governor for 6 years or so. He knows how to handle himself on the debate stage.
I think when we look back on all of this, we will realize that Saturday's debate changed everything, but not for Chris Christie.
Right. How do we get to this point, David?
Well, it happened, you know, it started in June 30th when Chris Christie announced that he was going to run for president, surprising no one. And then it ended today, sadly, when he announced that he was suspending his campaign, again, surprising no one.
It all started so optimistically on a warm, sunny day in Sandown.
Governor, does it feel a little different now that you're an official candidate?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, it's no turning back now, David.
What,
just go and win.
What are you expecting from New Hampshire this week? Are you all in New Hampshire?
Sure, yeah. Listen, Mary Pat and I are here till 4th of July, so I'd say that's all in for sure.
And ended in disappointment on a freezing cold day in Nashua.
We're going to go home to New Jersey tomorrow, and we're going to take a deep breath, see what the final results are tonight, because that matters. So we want to see exactly what happens. And so we're going to go home to New Jersey to wait. By tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, we should know.
But even before the light of the morning, the writing was on the wall. The governor's campaign, dependent as it was on a good showing in New Hampshire, failed to produce the needed momentum after nearly a year of visits, almost 80 town halls, and countless diner stops. In the end, Christie managed to secure less than 8% of the vote after a weekend that he thought had changed the race.
When you're president of the United States, when you're a governor of a state, the memorized 30-second speech where you talk about how great America is at the end of it doesn't solve one problem for one person. They expect you to plow the snow. They expect you to get the schools open. And when the worst natural disaster in your state's history hits you, they expect you to rebuild their state, which is what I've done.
This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not true.
There it is.
He knows exactly
there it is,
what he's
the memorized 25-second speech.
Well, that's the reason why this campaign is so important. Because I think this notion, I think this is an important point.
This epic debate takedown of a then surging Marco Rubio still threatens to undo the Florida senator's campaign, but according to exit polls and pundits, may have actually hurt Christie while helping the other two governors in the race, Jeb Bush and John Kasich, both of whom finished well ahead of Christie.
How could any man be so lucky?
You can take your pick of reasons for Christie's loss. There are many. Trump usurping Christie's telling it like it is theme.
Oh, wow.
The barrage of anti-Christie ads in the lead up to New Hampshire also seem to have an effect.
Chris Christie could well be Obama's favorite Republican governor.
And then there is the GWB lane closure scandal, which is still making headlines as the defendants, all former Christie allies or appointees, seek to implicate him further. It never seemed to come up much in campaign stops or the debates, but it clung to the campaign like a faint, pungent odor that voters couldn't identify, but still gave them pause.
Okay, so here we are. We're back to 6 candidates now in the race. And Jeanette, I have to ask you, size up the field. Trump has the momentum now, does he? Does he march now and he gets the nomination?
Not necessarily, but I think if you look at the New Hampshire primary, the theme is these anti-establishment candidates, people who have not been elected to office, are doing better than, you know, the traditional Republican governors, Hillary Clinton, who we thought it was inevitable for the nomination. I think if Donald Trump is going to win this nomination, it's because there are too many moderate Republicans in the race. They haven't coalesced against one candidate, and Donald Trump is basically winning and running all over them.
Bill, why this anti-establishment movement right now?
There's something going on in the country right now. I think some frustrations over economics. I think there's frustrations over a lot of things. And I think people are starting to see that the same old isn't going to get the job done. And you're seeing this on both sides of the aisle, of course. We'll see what ends up happening with Trump. I think the narrower field might put a more of a focus on some of Trump's flaws, and that may be beneficial to Kasich and Bush.
Does Hillary make a comeback?
I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. Here's what I do know. I think they have to take a very introspective look at their campaign. I think the candidate has to do so as well. We've been told, and those of us in our party, that this was an inevitability. Clearly it isn't. And I'm trying to justify their coming out of Iowa claiming that was a decisive victory, and then what happened last night. What Bernie Sanders did last night? It was, he ran in a walk in terms of winning.
Jeanette, where does Christie's support go?
We'll see. I mean, to me, I would think the logical choice would be to Jeb Bush. He's a moderate Republican governor. Governor Christie has strong ties to the Bush family. If you'll remember, George W. Bush appointed him U.S. attorney. So to me, that's the logical next step. But I'm not really sure. I see, though, that Governor Christie will continue to play a role in this race as a surrogate and as an attack dog against Hillary Clinton.
Bill, where does this support go?
I tend to agree with Jeanette. Listen, Chris Christie's campaign ended today. His career did. Okay, the guy's young. He's still got 2 years left as governor. And I think it's probably going to be a blend between Kasich and Bush. He's got relationships with both. The governor has worked closely with Kasich as a governor, and he's worked with Jeb as well.
Michael, we just have a minute left. The governor now focuses on New Jersey again. What impact is that going to have on some of the pressing issues of the day?
Well, it's probably a good thing for New Jersey and for the pressing issues. Everybody thinks he needs to put his hands back on. It also, for us in the Fourth Estate, means that a very big story of the past year is over now, or nearly over. It's winding down, and something's going to fill the void. I think the focus is going to shift to the 2017 governor's race politically in this state very soon.
David, a few seconds left. Progress on some of these big issues?
I think there's going to have to be. I think also that Chris Christie knows that he has a legacy that he can really save right now.